There's something inherently sinister about the untouched wilderness. It breathes a life of its own, whispering secrets to those who dare tread its paths. Our group of friends, bound by years of companionship and a shared thirst for adventure, was about to discover just how evil nature could be when we embarked on what we thought would be a simple off-grid hiking trip. It was a bright Friday morning when 6 friends, Jake, Lisa, Mark, Emma, Chris, and myself, Alex, packed our gear into 2 SUVs and left our dreadful jobs and the bustling city behind. We were headed to the Deep Pines Forest, a vast expanse of greenery that stretched for miles with barely a sign of civilization. Our plan was simple: spend the weekend hiking, getting wasted, camping, and enjoying the serenity of nature. Lisa had found an old map in her grandfather's attic that depicted a hidden trail, supposedly untouched by modern hikers. According to the map, the trail led to a breathtaking waterfall. We were intrigued. We reached the edge of Deep Pines Forest by late afternoon. The dense canopy overhead cast eerie shadows as we parked and began unloading our gear. The forest was silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves and distant bird calls. After setting up a makeshift camp, we gathered around the map. "This is where the main trail ends," Lisa pointed to a marked spot on the map, "and this is where the hidden trail begins." The hidden trail was faintly marked, almost as if it didn't want to be found. But we were determined. The first day's hike was good, filled with laughter, shared stories, and the thrill of exploring the unknown. We found a suitable clearing to set up camp for the night and settled in, unaware of the horrors that awaited us. The next morning, we woke to find Chris missing. At first, we thought he had gone off to relieve himself, but as minutes turned into hours, worry set in. We split up to search for him, calling his name through the dense underbrush. The forest, which had seemed so welcoming, now felt oppressive and menacing. After hours of searching, we regrouped at the camp, our voices hoarse and our spirits dampened. There was no sign of Chris. His backpack, boots, and jacket were still in his tent, untouched. "This doesn't make sense," Mark said, pacing back and forth. "He wouldn't just leave without telling us." As night fell, the forest came alive with unsettling sounds. Branches snapped and leaves rustled, but it was the eerie silence between these noises that was the most unnerving. We huddled close to the fire, our minds racing with fear and confusion. The following day, we decided to follow the hidden trail in hopes of finding Chris. As we ventured deeper into the forest, we noticed strange carvings on the trees, symbols that none of us recognized. The atmosphere grew heavier, and an uneasy feeling settled in our stomachs. Around midday, we stumbled upon an abandoned campsite. There were remnants of a fire, a torn tent, and scattered belongings. Among them, we found an old journal. The entries spoke of previous hikers who had ventured into the hidden trail, only to vanish without a trace. The last entry was a frantic scribble: "The forest knows. It watches. It takes." We were now fully aware that we were not alone. That night, as we sat around the fire, a faint, unearthly glow appeared in the distance. It flickered like a lantern, swaying gently. Jake, against our protests, decided to investigate. "Stay here," he said, gripping his flashlight. "I'll be right back." Minutes turned into an hour. The glow disappeared, and so did Jake. Just that fast. We were down to 4. Panic set in as we realized the gravity of our situation. 2 of our friends were missing, and the forest seemed to be toying with us. The remaining 4 of us, Lisa, Mark, Emma, and I, decided to turn back, but the path we had taken seemed different, almost as if the forest had rearranged itself to trap us. We pushed forward, hoping to find our way back to the main trail. As dusk approached, we heard a familiar voice calling out. It was Jake, but there was something off about it. The voice was strained, hollow, and echoing. We followed the sound, our hearts pounding in our chests. We found Jake standing by a tree, staring blankly ahead. His eyes were vacant, his face pale. He muttered incoherently about the trees. We tried to snap him out of it, but it was as if he was in a trance. The following morning, Jake was gone again. Lisa suggested we head to the waterfall marked on the map, thinking it might hold some answers. We reached the waterfall by noon, and it was as breathtaking as described, a majestic cascade of water, sparkling in the sunlight. But the beauty was deceiving. Near the base of the waterfall, we found an ancient stone altar with more of the strange carvings. Emma, who had studied some ancient languages, recognized one of the symbols. It meant sacrifice. "This place is cursed," she whispered. "We need to leave. Now." Suddenly, the ground beneath us trembled, and a chilling wind swept through the clearing. Shadows danced around us, and the whispers grew louder. We turned to run, but Mark screamed in pain from the distance. A shadowy figure, tall and menacing, had grabbed him. We fought to free him, but the figure was too strong. With Mark gone, only Lisa, Emma, and I remained. Desperation fueled our every step as we ran back through the forest, trying to retrace our path. The whispers and shadows followed us, relentless and mocking. We stumbled upon another clearing, where we found Chris and Jake. They were alive but changed, their eyes void of emotion, their bodies moving in unnatural ways. They spoke in unison, their voices blending into a sinister harmony. "You cannot escape. You are part of the forest now." Realizing we had no other choice, we fought against our possessed friends. It was a brutal struggle, and we barely made it out alive. Lisa had a deep gash on her arm, and Emma was limping from a twisted ankle. We knew we couldn't last much longer. In our final moments of despair, Lisa remembered the journal we had found. She flipped to the last few pages and found a clue, a ritual to break the curse. It required a personal item from each person and a drop of blood on the ancient altar. With no other options, we made our way back to the waterfall. The shadows were closing in, and the whispers were deafening. We placed our items on the altar and, with trembling hands, let a few drops of our blood fall on the stone. The ground shook violently, and a blinding light enveloped us. The whispers turned into screams, and the shadows writhed in agony. When the light faded, the forest was silent once more. We looked around and saw no sign of our missing friends or the malevolent presence. The curse had been lifted, but at a great cost. Exhausted and traumatized, we made our way back to the main trail, vowing never to speak of what had happened. Years have passed since that fateful trip, but the memories still haunt us. Lisa, Emma, and I have remained close, bound by our shared nightmare. We often wonder if Chris and Jake found peace or if they remain trapped in the forest, part of its dark legacy. The Deep Pines forest still stands, its secrets buried deep within. And though we survived, we know that the forest watches, waiting for its next victims to stumble upon the vanishing trail.